boys and girls, it's Miss Sweeney. We are going to be doing the Crankenstein Comprehension lesson. Today is October 21st, 2020. All right, so let's talk about the supplies that you need. You need your reading notebook and pencil. And when you get those supplies, you need to open to your next clean page and write today's date at the top, 10-21-20. You can pause the video at this time and go get your materials and then come back when you are done and press play. All right, well, let's get started. Let's listen to the book Crankenstein.
I think you're going to really like the book we're going to read today. It's called Crankenstein. If you have a copy, go get it so you can read along with me. Crankenstein, written by Samantha Berger, illustrated by Dan Santat. Now, Dan Santat is one of my favorite illustrators. He's always so good. And look, there's a little secret. If you take the dust jacket off, there's a totally different cover. It says Anatomy of a Crankenstein, and it gives all the physical characteristics of a Crankenstein. And look, on the back there's more. It's a really fun book to have at home. Let's get started. Have you seen Crankenstein? Oh, you would totally know if you had. You would say, "Good morning. How are you?" Crankenstein would say, "Mrrr." You would say, "Who wants pancakes?" Crankenstein would say, "Mrrr." Poor Crankenstein, there was only a drop of syrup left for his pancakes. You would say, "Time for school." Crankenstein would say, "Mrrr." You might see Crankenstein when it's super rainy outside. Or when it's extra cold on Halloween. Do you see that? Out of that big bowl of candy, she's giving him the tiniest piece. Or when it's way too hot for popsicles. Mrrr. Especially when it's way too hot for popsicles. You can be sure to find Crankenstein in a long, long line. Crankenstein hates long, long lines. Or when it's time to take gross cough syrup. Crankenstein hates gross cough syrup. And you'll definitely see Crankenstein when you say it's bedtime. Crankenstein hates when you say it's bedtime. Mrrr. Yes, that Crankenstein is some pretty scary business, all right. But just when you think that monster is here to stay, he might do something that surprises you. Because when Crankenstein meets another Crankenstein, it just might make him laugh. At least for now, because that Crankenstein, bonk, oh, he'll be back. But definitely not today. Anyone can turn into a Crankenstein, and it seems like the trick to turning them back is to make them laugh. This book sure makes me laugh. I hope you enjoyed it too. See you next time.
Okay, so now that we have read the story Crankenstein, now we're ready to talk about some comprehension skills that go along with the story. One of the things we're going to be talking about is sequencing events. So sequencing events is the sequence or the order of the events in the story. Strong readers retell the story in the correct order. practice sequencing with the story of the Three Little Pigs. So we always want to make sure that we get the story in order, because if I were to tell you what happened at the end first, it would be confusing, because then you wouldn't understand how I got to the end without telling you the things that happened before that. So if you practice with the Three Little Pigs, you can stop the video and use the pictures to help you understand the order of the story of the Three Little Pigs. You can pause the video, do a practice out loud with yourself at home, or you can listen along as Miss Sweeney explains. So we know that there were 3 little pigs and a big bad wolf. First, he comes to the pig's house here, and he huffs and he puffs and he blows the piggy's house down. Then the second little piggy, he goes to his house and he huffs and he puffs and he blows his house down. Then he goes to the third little piggy's house, but that piggy was super, super smart and built his house with brick. So when the wolf went there, he huffed and he puffed, but he could not blow that piggy's house down, and they were safe. Okay, so what we're going to do first is a little activity with problem and solution, because this will help us get to sequencing, understanding what happens in the story. So before we can put the story in order, we need to know what happens. So we're going to talk about the problem and the solution. We've talked about this before. The problem is what is happening in the story that's not such a great thing. So what makes Crankenstein grumpy? Now, what do good readers do? They go back to the text. So what I want you to do is, in your reading notebook, I want you to go down, pick your pencil up. You've already got your page set out with your date. And I want you to write the word grumpy, just like I have here. And then I want you to use the 2 pages that I have here to write down what is making Crankenstein grumpy. So use your text evidence reading here to answer the question. What is making him grumpy? And then write it down next to the word grumpy. Press pause, complete this, come back and press play when you're ready. So now I'm going to go in and look at the text evidence and answer, and I want you to check to see if you also have what I have using the text evidence. So in the text it says, you can be sure to find Crankenstein in a long, long line, 40-minute wait from this point. Crankenstein hates long lines. So what makes Crankenstein grumpy? Waiting in long, long lines. How does that match up with what you have? Hopefully you have the right thing and you correctly identified why he was grumpy from the text. Okay, let's continue. Now we want to look at the solution. So we know what makes him grumpy. That's the problem. But how do we solve that? What would make Crankenstein happy? So I want you to pause the video and I want you to look at the text evidence, identify from the text what makes him happy, and then in your notebook write happy, and then tell me what makes him happy. Come back and press play when you're ready to check. All right, so what makes Crankenstein happy? So according to the text, it says, "Mrrr." He might do something that surprises you, because when Crankenstein meets another Crankenstein, he might laugh. Ha 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 ha. Okay, so then next to happy, we know that what makes Crankenstein happy when he meets another Crankenstein. That makes him happy. Okay, so I hope that's what you had also from using your text evidence. Let's continue. Now, when we're sequencing Crankenstein, we want to put the story in order. First, next, then. That's your beginning, your middle, and your ending. Now, if you want to stop the video and rewind and rewatch the video and remember a little bit about what the story said, you can do that. But if you are ready to go ahead and put the story in order, then what I want you to do in your notebook is I want you to write the word first with a capital F, comma, and then leave some blank space between, some lines between. Then write the word next with a capital N, comma, and leave some lines between. And last, I want you to write the word then with a capital T and a comma and some lines under. After you complete that, I then want you to go back and write what happens first in Crankenstein, what happens next, and then. When you are finished, I want you to come back and press play and see if your sequencing correctly matches up with what I put. So first, Crankenstein has to get up for school. So that's what we know happens first. Next. So what happens next? Next, we find out all the ways Crankenstein is grumpy. Then, so this is last, at the end, we see Crankenstein happy after he meets another Crankenstein. And I even put an exclamation point on the end of that one. So here's the sequencing of the story from the beginning to the end. A lot of times it matches up exactly with what you have too. So hopefully you are also getting the same things that I have for the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. So let's continue. Making connections. So as we're reading, we are constantly making connections. We're thinking of how does Crankenstein connect to me? That's text to self. How does Crankenstein connect to another book I have read? How does Crankenstein connect to the world around me, other things that are going on? Strong readers are constantly making meaningful connections as they read. So what we're going to do is make some connections. The first thing I want us to think about is draw and write about what you have in common with Crankenstein. Now, this is something we talked about this week in vocabulary, common, things that are alike. So what are some things about Crankenstein that are alike with you? In your reading notebook, I want you to draw and write that down right now. Press pause, come back when you're done. So Miss Sweeney's going to talk about what I have in common with Crankenstein. I also do not like waiting in long lines. And then I might draw a picture of like people all standing in a line. Okay, so maybe that's something you also have in common with Crankenstein. Or maybe it's that you don't like taking cough syrup when you're not feeling well. Or maybe you don't like when it's super cold on Halloween night because you have to go out trick-or-treating in the cold. Okay, now we're going to move to the next part. Draw and write about how you are different from Crankenstein. So I want you to pause the video, and in your reading notebook, I want you to write how you and Crankenstein are different. And then I want you to come back and press play and see what Miss Sweeney has. Okay. So, how am I different from Crankenstein? So, honestly, I'm kind of different from Crankenstein, mainly because I like popsicles on a summer day, even if they are melting. That doesn't bother me too much. I wonder what you have in common, or what you're different than from Crankenstein. Maybe you don't mind the cold on Halloween night, or maybe you don't mind taking cough syrup, or maybe you like waking up for school. So that might be how you're different. I'm different from Crankenstein because I like them popsicles on a summer day, even if they are melting. Now, let's talk about the prefix dis, something that we've been talking about for a while. It means not. Some examples would be like disappeared, so maybe not appearing or missing, or displeased, something you're not happy about, or disobey, that means to not obey. And then the suffix ed, a suffix goes on the back of a word. It means that something's already happened. Some examples would be followed, you've already gone behind, or explain, you've already told somebody. All right. That concludes our reading lesson for today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and you enjoyed the story Crankenstein, and I will talk to you guys later.